Look to your right. Look to your right. I didn't sleep that well. That's
I had a really, really good bathroom experience.
Are you tired? I am.
This is our reward for work.
Bye, Mama. After 6 years of talking about it, we finally met our goal of cycling to Montreal. Join us as we recount our 8-day trip along Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River. On the quiet Saturday morning of June 20th, 2026, the streets were empty except 2 raccoons crossing the street ahead of us as we set out from our home in Kitchener, Ontario. With the send-off from our furry friends, we headed toward the train station for the first leg of our journey. Since this was our longest cycle touring trip yet, we weren't sure we'd make it to Montreal from our home in Kitchener with the amount of time we had off work. So our plans had us starting our cycling at the end of the GO train line in Oshawa, Ontario, which meant that before we got any real cycling distances in that day, we had a 3-hour train ride ahead of us. Our train arrived at the Oshawa GO station at around 11 a.m. After using the washroom and adjusting our gear from the train ride, we were ready to start cycling. We started following Highway 401 before making our way toward Lake Ontario. And as we approached Bowmanville, we saw St. Mary's cement plant and a ton of feeder lines to the Darlington nuclear power plant. Eventually, our scenery got even better as we made our way to the Lake Breeze Waterfront Park. Oh, but that's nice. I mean, this here kind of makes it worth it. Continuing along Lakeshore Road, we cycled on to Clarington. Here we came across the Lakeshore Road wooden bridge overpass. This is one of Ontario's last remaining wooden railway overpasses crossing the CN railway corridor. Our timing couldn't have been more perfect.
Here we go.
Oh, cool. Port Hope was the location of one of our pit stops. We stopped at a grocery store for snacks and a kitty cafe for a coffee and washroom break. Toe Beans has one of the most unique toilets I've ever seen. Finally, we made it to our final resting place for the day at the Coburg Inn. We dropped our gear and settled in with our dinner. Sorry, we were too hungry to snap a before photo.
Certainly not the luxury suite, but
Good enough.
I did this. It was made. I just wanted to make sure it was clean.
Look at us in our matching shirts.
Nice. And messy hair.
Good first day.
Good first day. Fantastic.
And I am now looking forward to hitting the chat room.
There we go.
Yeah, all right. Now let's talk numbers. We departed the Oshawa GO station at 11:20 a.m., and our total distance from Oshawa to Coburg was 77.5 kilometers, including detours and stops. If we include the distance from our house to the Kitchener GO station, we actually rode 81.88 kilometers. Our average speed was 16.84 kilometers per hour, and our total ride time was 4 hours and 36 minutes. Not including our train ticket or motel, we spent $45.
Good morning. I didn't sleep that well. I don't think you did either. No. I was shocked after a day of cycling that we would not sleep well, but that's okay. Here we go. 105 kilometers.
105.
Okay.
After leaving the Coburg Inn, we were lucky enough that the Waterfront Trail stayed on Highway 2 only for a short period before it turned south towards the lake again. We biked on very quiet roads almost all the way to Coburn.
He sees what I see. Look to your right. Look to your right. Oh, it's a coyote.
And only 5 minutes later, we encountered a deer in the road. Bye! After a short water break in Colborne, we continued on to Brighton, where we decided to take a longer break, but not before we encountered a mother turtle laying her eggs.
It might have laid its eggs right here. Bye, Mama.
Our planned break spot in Brighton was Kaylee's Cafe, where we decided to have a big breakfast. It was super busy and they only had space at the breakfast bar, but that was fine by us. The food was delicious and the service was great. Soon after we left the restaurant, we hit the Brighton Road swing bridge, spanning the Murray Canal, where countless boaters begin or end their journey between Lake Ontario and the Trent Severn Waterway. Here we also passed another cycle tourist who was quite loaded up. We regret not stopping to talk to him to learn about where he was traveling to. Not long after entering Prince Edward County, we took another short water break in the shade in Consicon. Consicon is also where the Millennium Trail begins, but we decided not to take that trail, but to stick to paved roads instead, where soon enough we were in wine country. We stopped for a quick snack in Wellington right before we hit our day's milestone.
Okay, we are just about 100 kilometers right now. Yeah, I just got it. Are you tired? Nope. I am.
And just 8 kilometers later, we made it to our final destination. Arrived at our next location. And it's a very big tiny house.
This is our reward for over.
We did a little walk around tour of Picton, which is a very nice community. We did walk around the harbor and the bay. But the downtown, very charming, actually. Quite a nice community here. Quite impressed with it.
We were quite impressed with the lodging that we had that day. So we had a living room and a very big kitchen, which is honestly bigger than the kitchen that we have in our own house, with the mess on the counter with our snacks and all the amenities that we could hope for. So microwave, stove, kettle, and we used it. Then we go into the hallway where there's the main door. But what was really nice is that the owner provided the artwork herself. So she's also an artist, and it was really nice art. Going into the bathroom, also some more of the owner's original art. Very nice. She also had decent quality shampoo in there too. That was nice. And then we had already made a mess of the bedroom with all of our stuff, but it was quite a nice, cozy place. And then outside, there was a really nice sitting area that we were just too tired to utilize.
The shower here is so much better.
That's the way to start.
Yeah, that's the most recent thing that's happened.
I had a really, really good bathroom experience today.
Yes, I did.
So good. We did it. We made it. Yeah, we did the long day is done, and it actually wasn't hard at all.
At all.
I could have kept going.
I know you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it wasn't hard at all, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Like, we'd done 100+ kilometers before, but not carrying
all the gear,
that much stuff.
Yeah, not with 50-pound bikes. That's true. We've been very fortunate with the weather. 2 days, it's been a good temperature, not too hot. It's been in the low 20s, and we've had wind behind us. So anyway, we are going to finish up for the day, relax a little bit more, and take it easy. We'll just plan it out. Let's see where tomorrow takes us. Good night.
And now the stats for day 2. We departed Cobourg at 7 a.m. Our total distance was 108 kilometers, and our ride time was 6 hours and 6 minutes. Our average speed was a bit faster this day at 17.71 kilometers per hour, and we arrived in Picton at 5:10 p.m. This day we spent $62. How did you get a bad back, Richard?
I dropped something on the floor on day 3, the morning of, and pulled a disc or something. I can't walk, but I can ride a bike.
And so ride a bike he did. We ended up riding about 10 kilometers to this ferry, where the ferry took us across the bay for about 1 kilometer. Once we departed the ferry, we pedaled down the Loyalist Parkway and came across a sign that said ice cream and goats. Richard was in pain anytime he wasn't pedaling, but I could not pass this place up, not even realizing until we'd stopped that there were goats on the roof. As we pedaled along, there was a nice breeze from the lake and the sky gave us a break from the sun, but we still hadn't had any rain.
Photo bomb.
Photo bomb.
We took our lunch break in Bath, Ontario, and as we picnicked, a local man came by to tell us stories about the UFOs he'd encountered. Yep, that's what he talked to us about. And as we sat eating our lunch and listening to this man, the forecasted rain showed up. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough for us to put on our rain jackets and continue on our way. The rain continued lightly as we continued cycling all the way to Kingston. We arrived at our Airbnb around 2:30 and did a load of laundry, after which we decided to take a walk to downtown Kingston to get dinner. On our way, we passed the Kingston Penitentiary and went in to check the prices, but decided to skip it for today.
We walked downtown Kingston from St. Lawrence College, which is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it took us about an hour to walk.
Yeah.
After dinner and ice cream, we decided that it was too long of a walk to walk all the way back, especially with Richard's sore back, so we decided to take a city bus back to the Airbnb. We spent the rest of the evening hanging out here, and this was a shared Airbnb, and we did have other guests at the time too, so we spent some time in the living room, but then we went off to our room. Because we had dinner in town, we didn't utilize this nice kitchen, but our other housemates did. Our room was close to one of the shared bathrooms, and as you can see, we made quite the mess. But it was a good, convenient location where our bedroom was because we parked our bikes in the backyard, and we had a perfect view from the window. So day 3, we departed Picton at 8:45 a.m. We rode a total distance to Kingston of 62.85 kilometers with a ride time of 3 hours and 36 minutes. Our average speed was 17.3 kilometers per hour, and we arrived at our Airbnb at 2:30 p.m. We ate dinner out, so spent more this day, $118. Richard's back was still sore, but the walking seemed to do him some good, so we took a walk by this nice church along the way to the local Tim Hortons for breakfast. While we ate, a lady with a cockatoo came by. This was the best photo we got without feeling overly creepy, but the bird was really cool. After breakfast, we packed up and made our way back towards downtown. We took a stop at the Gord Downey Memorial Pier, then continued our way through the downtown.
We're dodging goose poop.
Yeah, we're dodging goose poop.
Kingston had a lot of sights to see, and it's definitely a place we're considering revisiting. And then we left Kingston. We were back traveling on Highway 2, and I would say this stretch was probably the worst that we encountered on the whole trip. Needless to say, we were happy to reach Gananoque.
We got to visit Gananoque, which was amazing.
Yeah. We stayed in Gananoque for probably around 2 hours.
Yeah.
Chilling by the water and
The harbor, yeah.
And then after riding on some of the worst roads we had to cycle on, enter the Thousand Islands Parkway. Literally from the worst road of the trip to arguably the best road of the trip.
We stopped at exactly the right spot to commemorate a milestone. $300 on the trip.
Nice.
Yep, good job.
I can barely walk.
And not even 3 kilometers later, we had reached our next motel. We stayed just off of the Thousand Islands Parkway at a place called Ivy Lee, which didn't really have a whole lot except for a bunch of cottages and the city cruise terminal.
So today was our shortest day with almost exactly 50 kilometers from Kingston to Gananoque. The road really sucked.
Terrible. It is the bike route. It is it County Road 2?
Yep.
I want to say. But it is the Waterfront Trail. But there was a shoulder, or let's call it a bike gutter. Some call it a bike gutter. But it was literally a gutter. It felt like
Our motel, pretty cool.
yeah, it's all right. Capricorn Motel, right here in Ivy.
The room itself is, whatever. You get what
It's
you pay
charming.
for. But everything outside, it has like an outdoor patio that you can sit at, and
has this
it's
dock.
nice flowers. Yeah,
This dock within a 3-minute walk.
walking. Yeah, across the street basically. Yep.
We're doing well. We're making it. It's day 4. We've surpassed 300 kilometers on this trip so far, which is over the halfway point, and got our feet in the water of the St. Lawrence River. So this is a pretty end to a great day. Pretty good end.
Yep.
So day 4 finished us off at the halfway point. We departed Kingston at 10:30 a.m. and rode a total distance of 50 kilometers. Our ride time was 3 hours and 8 minutes with an average speed of 15.9 kilometers. We took it slow this day. We arrived at Ivy Lee at 3:30 p.m. and spent a total of $76.
Richard has reached peak old man status. Look at those socks and sandals. Oh yeah.
We had a few more kilometers to tackle this day, so we had an early start. But knowing that we were going back to the Thousand Islands Parkway, we had no hesitation. Highway ends just as you're heading into Brockville, and so we were back on Highway 2. Fortunately, it was not quite as bad as it was coming out of Kingston. And we decided to take our break in Brockville at quite an appropriate place. And no trip to Brockville is complete without visiting the Brockville Railway Tunnel. You're not allowed to ride bikes through the tunnel, so we just took a couple of photos outside and continued on our way. We'd seen the tunnel in a previous cycle tour and highly recommend coming to see it, especially at night. We continued on our way until we reached Prescott, where we stopped and had our lunch by the harbor. Leaving Prescott, we passed Fort Wellington, which was originally commissioned by the British during the War of 1812 and was later expanded in 1838 during the Upper Canada Rebellion. It now functions as a public museum and a place I'd definitely like to revisit. Soon we pass the bridge to the USA and enter our next town to visit, which is Cardinal, Ontario. Cardinal is a small village along the St. Lawrence River with a nice waterfront park. We didn't know it until we had arrived, but it's also a draw for scuba divers, as there are some diving sites nearby. We saw quite a few divers at this shipwreck of the Conestoga, which sank in 1922 as a result of a fire on board. I was also quite intrigued by the pink seaweed in St. Lawrence here. After spending some time in the park, we walked around the village before heading back to our Airbnb for dinner. We'd picked up these meatballs and mashed potatoes from Giant Tiger in Prescott along the way. I don't recommend. It was the worst meal of the trip. I didn't get any photos of this Airbnb, unfortunately, but it did have a really nice outdoor patio, and we spotted this cute little cat taking a prance along the canal. As it turns out, she'd been hunting.
Oh, it's a baby rabbit. Oh.
On day 5, we departed Ivy Lee at 7:40 a.m. and traveled a total distance of 76.94 kilometers to Cardinal. We rode for 4 hours and 33 minutes and averaged a speed of 16.89 kilometers per hour. We arrived at our Airbnb at 3:10 p.m. and spent a total of $63, 5 of which was wasted on those meatballs. We had another early start this day. We left Cardinal just before 8 a.m. and got back on Highway 2 en route to Cornwall. We started off riding next to the old canal, and then the water opened up and we were biking next to the grander St. Lawrence again. The Airbnb that we stayed at the previous night is just across this canal.
It's not real.
We had a nice break in Morrisburg at Waterfront Park and hung out with a family of geese before setting off again. Not long after our break, we continued east along the Waterfront Trail and came across the restored Altsville train station. Originally built in 1889, the station was saved from demolition when the St. Lawrence Seaway flooded much of the surrounding area in the 1950s. Then, not 2 minutes later, a large monument on a hill caught our attention. We couldn't pass that up, so we turned toward the river and climbed to the hill on our bikes. We had stumbled upon the Chrysler Farm Battlefield Memorial, commemorating one of the most important battles of the War of 1812. In 1813, British regulars, Canadian militia, and Indigenous allies successfully defended the St. Lawrence supply route against the American advance towards Montreal. Although the original battlefield now lies beneath the waters of the St. Lawrence after the construction of the seaway, the memorial was located here to preserve its history. As we explored the site, a heritage train rolled by below us on its way to the Upper Canada Village. There was a lot of history packed into just a few kilometers in this section of the trail. Another great thing about this part was that we were off Highway 2 for almost the rest of the day. We continued along beautiful, secluded trail away from traffic. We even found a nice bench along the trail to stop for our lunch break. The Longsu Parkway was the next part of the Waterfront Trail. It's a succession of 11 islands connected by bridges and is said to be one of Ontario's most scenic drives. While I'm not sure I would go that far in the description, it was still very nice. Richard took notice that these trees were all lined up and it wasn't in line with the road. That's when he realized it was the 45th parallel, which is the latitudinal line marking the halfway point between the equator and the North Pole. Of course, we stopped to commemorate the moment before moving on. The entire rest of the way to Cornwall was dedicated trail or separated bike lanes, so it was a very enjoyable ride. When we did make it into Cornwall, we quickly unloaded our stuff at our Airbnb before making our way to the downtown so that we could find a laundromat to do our laundry and also grab a bite to eat for dinner. There was really great riding from our Airbnb to the downtown. Beautiful trail right along the river. After doing our laundry, we found this food truck called the Loose Caboose that had a really high rating, and so we gave it a try. Richard said that that was probably the best fries and gravies he's ever had. After getting our fill, we went back to the Airbnb, which had a beautiful pool and also some nice furry friends that we got to hang out. This is basically how we spent the rest of our evening that day. Okay, Okay, let's talk numbers. We departed Cardinal at 7:40 a.m. and traveled a total of 71 kilometers. Our ride time was 4 hours and 10 minutes with an average speed of 16.34 kilometers per hour. We arrived at our Airbnb in Cornwall at 2 p.m. before heading into the downtown for our errands, and we only spent $34 this day. After a very relaxing morning and a nice chat with our Airbnb host over coffee, we hit the road again. We got to see this lovely trail again, except this time the conditions were different. We were expecting rain, and we got it. We had our breakfast sitting under an umbrella at the McDonald's patio in Cornwall and then set out for the day. The rain did stop and we hit our 500-kilometer milestone and continued on our last stretch of road in Ontario. We were alongside the 401 again, but not for long. We finally hit the Quebec border, and it was a little lackluster because there was a big pickup truck parked right in front of the sign. It would be a pickup truck, wouldn't it? But almost immediately after hitting the border, we saw this rest stop for cyclists. It was like an immediate shift as soon as we crossed into Quebec. They had infrastructure that accommodated us as bikes almost all the way into Montreal. We were really impressed. Soon we were along the Canal de Solange, which meant we were not far at all from our next Airbnb in Coteau-du-Lac. And we made it. After a quick shower, we set out to explore the town. Our stay was right next to this Canadian historical site. This spot was already important because of its location on the St. Lawrence River, and in the late 1700s, the British built a small fortress here to help protect this key transportation route between Montreal and the Great Lakes. Coteau-du-Lac is also home to the very first lock canal in North America. Engineers built the canal to help boats get around the rough waters and rapids in this section of the river.
Fish.
It's a little weasel.
Hey, buddy. Be gone.
Oh my gosh, you're so cute. And we're scaring him. You dropped your fish.
fish. As we continued to explore the site, we got a whiff of some delicious French fries, so we decided that when in Quebec, we'd better have some poutine. And yes, these cheese curds were squeaky, the true sign of a good poutine. And that was it for our day. We hung out in this really cool terrace for the rest of the evening before turning in for the night. We left Cornwall at 9 o'clock a.m. and traveled a total distance of 67.67 kilometers. Our total ride time was 4 hours and 10 minutes, and our average speed was 16.51 kilometers per hour. Our arrival time in Coteau-du-Lac was 4 p.m., and we spent a total of $93. We packed up our stuff and prepared our bikes as we set off on our final day of the journey. After snapping a last day selfie, we set back out onto the Soulanges Canal. After some time, we made it to Perrot Island, where we crossed the bridge, and before long made it to the island of Montreal. Traveling along the south shore of the island of Montreal was very picturesque and was very low traffic, as there are signs along the way requesting that traffic goes to the highway. So our route was a combination of quiet city streets and recreational paths. At the start of the Lachine Canal, we stopped for our lunch break and then carried on our way along the canal, which would eventually bring us into the city center of Montreal, the end of our trip. The city was very busy and vibrant, and eventually we made it to Metcalfe Park, which is where our journey ended. Our final day stats were that we departed Coteau-du-Lac at 8:08 a.m. We traveled a total distance of 73.39 kilometers with a total ride time of 4 hours and 33 minutes. Our average speed was 16.12 kilometers per hour, and our arrival time was 2:35 p.m. And we didn't actually spend any money on this leg of the trip.
High five.
You made it to Montreal. When we started this trip, it felt like a huge undertaking, but the biggest surprise was realizing that it was completely doable. The hills, the distance, the long days on the bike, none of it was as hard as we imagined. We supported each other, pushed through the tough moments, like having a put-out back, and somehow still managed to like each other after all those kilometers. The best part was slowing down and seeing all the little communities and places that we would have missed by car. And would we do it again? Absolutely. It was an amazing experience, and if we'd had another week, we would have kept on going. And I think that the biggest takeaway is that you don't have to go far away to find an adventure. Sometimes you just have to get on your bike and explore what's right outside your door.
This is how we're ending the trip.